Hey everybody, and welcome to today's edition of the Lindsay Show. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking to Lindsay Pinchuk, who is the founder and CEO of Bump Club and Beyond. We talk about how she saw a need for moms, dads, moms-to-be, dads-to-be, and even parents who are maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12 years into this to find support from other parents out there. And so she founded Bump Club and Beyond, and then did what not a lot of entrepreneurs do and sold her company to a larger company. And I talked to her about what her thought process was, what internal battle she had about deciding, is this the right decision for me, or am I making a huge mistake? After that, I jump into the opposite end of the spectrum and address one of the questions that I get asked so much about women's reproductive health, which is, how do essential oils impact my birth control pills? Are they going to make me get pregnant? Are they going to make them less effective? What do I need to look out for to know that they are working just as they are supposed to be? Let's get to the show. Welcome to the Lindsay Show, a podcast that helps you find fulfillment amidst chaos. On this show, I interview thought leaders, doctors, creatives, spiritual gurus, and game changers who inspire you to pursue your dreams, overcome obstacles, and leave your mark. For nearly 10 years prior to starting Bump Club and Beyond, Lindsay Pinchuk worked in publishing, advertising, and marketing at Hertz Magazines, MTV Networks, The Tribune Company, and Time Incorporated for brands that included Good Housekeeping, Redbook, Sports Illustrated, The Chicago Tribune, and Nickelodeon. As a University of Michigan alumna, she bleeds maize and blue, but also has a soft spot for the Northwestern Wildcats, where she earned her Master's of Science in Integrated Marketing Communication. Lindsay wanted something different in the marketplace. She saw that she didn't have great connections with other expectant moms when she was pregnant, and this was her initial catalyst in starting the Bump Club and Beyond brand. Bump Club and Beyond has connected parents and parents-to-be with the best products, resources, and information so that they can create the pregnancy that they choose. And she's been doing this for over 10 years. What started as a small community of moms in Chicago has grown into a national company, reaching over 500,000 parents and parents-to-be. Bump Club and Beyond has worked with almost every national brand in the baby industry, and she has created and executed custom activations for Target, Nordstrom, The Honest Company, Seventh Generation, Ulta Beauty, and many, many more. In 2011, Bump Club and Beyond was named Best Mommy Community by Chicago Magazine. In 2014, Lindsay was named one of Crane Chicago's best business entrepreneurs. And after a decade of building her brand, she was so excited to get acquired by Advantage Marketing Solutions in 2019. While she is still at the helm of her business strategy, her new role is to grow and scale her business. Besides founding and running Bump Club and Beyond, Lindsay prides herself on being a wife, a mother, a good friend, a daughter, and a granddaughter. She hopes that you will be able to find all of the resources that you need to create the pregnancy of your dream at Bump Club and Beyond. So, Lindsay Pinchuk, welcome to the Lindsay Show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you today because I think that a lot of women see a need in the marketplace and go, I'm going to do something about this. And they just kind of muddle through it and they don't quite know how to get traction. But you saw a need in the marketplace and you said, wait a minute, I'm going to build something amazing out of this. So tell us where Bump Club and Beyond started. What void in the marketplace did you see and how did you want to fill it?
So essentially, it started before I was even ready to get pregnant. I had a friend who was asking me about what my other friends were experiencing during pregnancy. And I kept saying to her, like, you need some pregnant friends. Like, I'm not here yet. I'm not at that point yet. And I was helping her to like look for resources in Chicago, and there really weren't any. There was prenatal yoga, and that was about it. And I knew that when I eventually started my own family and got pregnant, that I would want to have resources and information and support and friends along for the journey. And so initially, it didn't even start with myself, but then when I got pregnant myself, I said to my husband, like, there is a business to be had here, because there is nowhere for me to go in person. And really, that was the big catalyst. Was there's so much information online being thrown at you when you're pregnant, but I really wanted that in-person connection with other women who were pregnant at the same time as me. And truly, none of my closest friends were pregnant at the same time as me initially. We all have third grade girls going into fourth grade now. And so I was just the first one. When I got pregnant, I said to my husband, all right, like, I'm going to set up an event, and I'm going to just see what happens. And really, it was a lot of trust in my gut and putting my mindset, like, what do I want and what do I need right now? And at the time, I really needed community and support. So I created a prenatal workout event with a local boutique fitness studio here in Chicago. And we did a maternity shopping event with also a local maternity boutique. And you have to remember, at the time, there was no business Facebook pages. That wasn't a thing. I mean, it was like, there was no Instagram, there was no Snapchat. Like, it was a very different social landscape. And I was working in publishing and advertising and marketing. And I sent out an email to everyone I knew. And we had like 50 women show up to these first events. And it was very clear from that, response that people really needed this. And as my pregnancy went on, I knew that I needed certain things and I had certain questions. And so I really started building events based on what my needs were. We started hosting dinners where, we would talk about breastfeeding or sleep or childcare. And with my background in advertising and marketing and sponsorship sales, I started getting brands involved. I always say that pregnant women are a marketer's dream.
Oh my gosh, absolutely they are.
We're looking, you're looking for so much at that time. And so, with my background, it was very easy, and also being in the demographic at the same time, to really build an authentic connection with this audience through my own experiences. And so that is really how Bump Club started.
So when you realized that, like, whoa, we had 50 women show up to this first event, and you realized that there were a lot of women who had that same emotion that you did, which is, I need a community of support. What were some of the surprises that continued to roll in? So you were surprised that you had 50 women come in, a surprise that this many people needed this information. What else surprised you along your journey?
I think at first a lot was just, like, people were very surprised, the demographic. And now this is not a surprise to me, but at the time, every person is different and every person handles situations differently. And at the time, I was very surprised by just how much people were just really seeking out information. And I was also surprised by how much information there was online that was just not good information. And for me, it started to become more of a, I want to be able to give the best resources and the most trusted experts and the most trusted information to this audience, because I don't want people to get bad information. And there's so much of it out there. And so from there, I have always said that even today, 10 years later, like, I am not the sleep expert. I am not the breastfeeding expert, but I can certainly find those people for you. And I can speak to a lot of those topics. But the biggest, thing about Bump Club is that we really pride ourselves in bringing in like the best from all over the world. And it was really to help with that need, and really to help women sift through the information and sift through the messages, and like, really, is there a difference between all these bottles or all of these diapers, and really to help them make decisions. And my conversations along the way with our audience, and I've never stopped talking to this audience. I talk to them every night now on Instagram. And even though I'm not having babies anymore, and the Bump Club baby is really my baby, I very much want to continue that conversation in the most trusted way and to bring them the best information possible. So I think, to me, that was like the biggest surprise, because I'm not I'm not one that really gets overwhelmed with things, but I saw it with my audience and I was like, well, how can I help this? Like, how can we help them to make the best decisions? And that's really what our goal has always been, is not to tell women or families, because we absolutely work with same-sex families now, and tons of dads as well. But families, we want to give them all of the options. Like, these are the best options, the Cliff Notes version, and you need to make the best decision for you.
What do you think some of the biggest misconceptions are and the biggest pieces of misinformation about modern day pregnancy are that are still out there in the internet?
What are some misconceptions about pregnancy? I mean, I think a big one is a lot of people just think they need everything. And, that's something that we've really tried to help solve for. Because one, we know that families don't all have infinite amounts of funds. And so it's really like, what do you need? And, and you're being marketed as a pregnant woman or an expectant parent, you're being marketed with so many different messages. And so it's, a lot of people are really like, well, do I really need that? And like, I bought this, and, it's really helping people to prioritize. And maybe some people do need certain things, but it's really helping people to prioritize, because they're being inundated every day. The minute you start clicking on things now, it's a very different world than it was 10 years ago. You're being served a million ads, and it can be very confusing. I also think that people think that there's like one way to do things, and and it's very easy to get wrapped up in a lot of advice and information. And I think it's very important to support this audience with all types of information and make sure that they can make up the best decision for themselves. And like, there are just so many people out there, especially now with Instagram and influencers, like really preaching what they feel is best. And it's really not about that. It's about what you feel is best. And so, we really try to help that misconception as well, that like, tune out the noise, because there isn't one right way. And we want you to make the decision that works for you.
Absolutely. I could not agree with that more. That is one thing that I, as a pharmacist, am preaching all the time is nobody can tell you how to guide your own health. And we should not feel like there is one dogmatic way to be a modern pregnant woman, or even just, in people who are consider themselves non-binary or transgender, but still have the ability to get pregnant. Like, all of those things, there's no one right or wrong way to be pregnant. And so kudos to you for putting the power back into the individual's hands, instead of saying like, we are going to tell you how to be the pregnant woman. So you did what not many business owners do, but a lot of people have those big goals of getting acquired by a larger company. I don't feel like women talk about money enough, and especially independent business owners. If somebody approached me and said, I would like to buy your company, I would have absolutely no idea where to even start. So talk to us about the process of getting acquired. Did you face fears of like, what if my child, Bump Club and Beyond, gets taken in a direction that I don't like? And how did you reach out to friends and colleagues to get advice on what this process looked like? And how did you ultimately come to the decision to say yes?
Yeah. So I always knew, like, when I started, I'm not one to really half-ass things. And so I always knew that I was going to, once I, quit my job and was going to do this, that I was going to do this. But at the time, I really wasn't sure, like, what does do this mean? I was starting a business, and you're so wrapped up in starting the business, you're not really necessarily looking at what the end goal is. I would say about halfway through, around the 5-year mark, when we started working with brands like Target and Honest Company, and really activating in 24 cities versus just Chicago, I started realizing that we had something that was much bigger than probably what I would ever be able to provide just with our team. And at that time, we probably had a team of like 8 or 9 people, some full-time, some part-time. It was, as a small business owner, you kind of piece it all together the way that you could best make it work financially. And, and I started having conversations and getting asked to speak on panels. And so I started networking a lot more in like the entrepreneur space. And a lot of people started asking me, like, what is your end game? And that was really when I started thinking about, like, what is my end game? And at first it was really just a lot of like conversing, even for a few years. Like, conversing with people, asking what their opinions were, talking with people who were raising money and who were not raising money, and trying to figure out like what is the best option for me. I relied heavily on like a lot of mentors who were going through, their own acquisitions or looking to be acquired, or, who had been through the process prior, both female and male. I mean, I had one of my friend's husbands is a close friend of mine, and he had sold his business, and we had numerous conversations about what this was going to look like and who could potentially buy me. And, it was a lot of talking and educating myself. And from there, I realized that I did not want to do a fundraise. I mean, for me and for my business, that was not what I wanted to do. I'm not in a manufacturing business. I'm in a service providing, we're content providers. So I didn't need to raise money to pay for goods. And so I didn't want to have that liability. That was kind of the first conclusion that I came to. And really what I wanted was resources. And I wanted someone to buy me who could obviously, purchase me, and who wanted to keep my company and my brand intact, and who wanted my brand and for me and my team, not just, to have my logo on something, but someone who equally believed in my mission. And so to your point, I think that it's important to really understand and know kind of what direction you want to go in, because I do see all too often entrepreneurs, both men and women, who think like, oh, maybe I should fundraise, or maybe I should find a purchaser, and they're spreading themselves kind of all over the place. And for me, at least, it was very helpful to know, like, this is kind of the direction that I want. And from there, it's very hard to do this while you're running a business. It is a full-time job to sell your company. And so, from there, I would say at about year 6, year 7, I really started taking it seriously to bring in the right people into my company to get us into shape where we could sell. I brought in like a financial person, like a controller, because until then it was like me, and like I had someone part-time, but that person needed to really help get my books and my numbers together. And I knew that. So we did that. And I really started investing more back into the company in a way that would allow me to effectively sell it eventually. Ironically enough, I said, in my head, I said, I want to sell my company by year 10. And that's when I turned 40. I turned 40 last November. So that was kind of my lofty goal. But I would say from now, almost 2 years ago, I randomly got a LinkedIn message, and it was from someone at Advantage Solutions. And it was kind of cryptic, but and the reason I share this is because we all get so many LinkedIn messages, and I think we often ignore a lot of them. But for some reason, I replied to this, and it wasn't a solicitation, but it kind of looked like a solicitation. But I saw the woman's picture, and I thought, do I know her? And I replied back to her. And she said to me, we'd love to set up a call to talk about your business, maybe partnering with you. And Advantage had found me through my relationship with Target, and they do a lot in the retail space. And the company who acquired me, Brand Connections, actually does a lot with Target as well in the beauty space. And they wanted to move into baby, and our activations in baby were blocking them from doing so. And so after my first conversation, like the end of it was kind of like, well, what's your goal? Would you ever want to be acquired? And I was like, yes. And so that was like the initial conversation that started this. At the same time, ironically enough, I had 2 other people reach out to me on Instagram, or not on Instagram, on LinkedIn, interested in my company. So it was like, kind of like, it was just kind of like karma, and like the stars all aligned at the same time. And so from there, I sat down with my controller, and I made sure that the person who was helping me with that piece of this had done this before, knew and understood what I needed to be able to effectively sell this, because I had never done this before. And I really trusted her. And I had a couple of controllers previously that I did not trust, which that's why they were no longer with me. And I really trusted this person to help get me into shape. And so that would be my advice for anyone listening is, if you can't do something, or you're not comfortable doing one of the pieces of the puzzle, you really need to find someone who's able-bodied and capable, and who you inherently trust to help you do this. And so she started helping me get a deck together and my financials together. And I started conversations with two of the different entities, Advantage and another one. And the other one was a completely different, it was a different company. They were a content provider essentially. And it turned out that other company, it just wasn't the right fit. And a lot of that was in my gut. And really in terms of these conversations, like, you have to go with your gut and you really have to trust your gut. And for me, with that company, they started asking me things that made me uncomfortable. They wouldn't sign certain non-disclosure agreements. I felt like they wanted me to share my secret sauce with them, and they weren't willing to give anything in return up front. And I ended up having a lawyer friend who knew them have a talk with them about it. And they were kind of like, well, we want to just hire Lindsay and like dissolve her brand. And to me, that wasn't the right fit, because I've built this brand, and why would I want to go work for someone and start from the ground up, like with another brand? Like, no, thank you.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Makes no sense. And it wasn't a brand that I even like cared to, it wasn't the right fit. And that was the big thing, was like, it wasn't the right fit. And I had a flight booked to go out there to pitch the business, and I canceled it. And like, we canceled it, and they reimbursed me for my flight. And like, that was it. And this was going on at the same time as the conversations with Advantage. And with Advantage, I really felt, I felt like they wanted me. They wanted my brand. They realized that in order to get into the baby space, they needed a trusted player in that space, and they recognized that we had that, which I think was very important. And I will say, this wasn't a short process. It was actually, to my knowledge now, much shorter than a lot of acquisitions. We closed the deal in about 8 months, but it was a lot of work, a lot of back and forth, a lot of me flying out to Irvine, California, where they were based, and a lot of me not being able to share this. Like, my team didn't know that we were going through this, and they ended up knowing before we closed the deal, because we had to move them over into the new company before the beginning of the year. So like, it was a very big process in terms of doing that. But I would say the biggest things with selling your company is you have to ask the right questions up front about what the expectation is and what the plan is. You have to get things in writing. You have to go with your gut, and you have to really bring in players who can help you do it, and fill in for you where you might not have the strength. And you have to trust those players. Those would be my biggest pieces of advice in this process.
I completely agree with you. Having trusted players and really having those gut instincts that you just go, I can't quite explain it, but I don't know why, but this just does not feel like the right decision for my business, is critical for women who are owning companies. Because I know, for me, you make really costly decisions when you surround yourself with people that you can't trust. And you really make bad choices when you ignore your gut. And so you mentioned two things. One was you were a trusted player in this arena, and you wanted to get bought by a company that understood that you had built that trust, worked on that trust. I think that is something so many people ask me, how do I grow on social media? How do I grow a following? How do I grow a brand? And I'm like, people have to know you and trust you. And so what advice do you have for people out there who maybe have smaller brands, even tiny brands, on how you craft trust within an audience?
Yeah. And I think like this is a big thing that I talk about a lot, and that we talk about internally a lot. It's not about, to your point, like how many followers or how it's really about who's following and who's engaging with you and how they're engaging with you and how often. And I would say the biggest thing that I have learned from this is that I have never compromised my own integrity for this brand. And, there are products that we say no to. There always have been, even now to this day. Like, we had a huge company want to sample with us recently, and it wasn't the right fit. And we had to say no. And I told, our new company, this is not going to work, because this will really crush the trust that we've built with our audience. I think too, like, just being really honest and upfront And like for us, I have put my face on this brand, as have many of my employees. Like, it's a bunch of moms. And for the most part, we do have other employees as well. But, the people that you see are moms and our family people. And we have put our faces out there, and we have created dialogue, and we have created conversation, and you can't force it, because when it's forced, people they read through it. Like, it's so different now. The landscape is so different now than it was 10 years ago. And, you would look at Bump Club and Beyond, for example, on Instagram, and like, you would think that like being around 10 years, we'd have, 200,000 followers, and we don't. We have like under 50,000. And a lot of that is really because, one, I will not buy followers. I will not pay bots. I will not do all that stuff, because that compromises my product with my audience. Like, I'm going online every single night right now since COVID started, for the most part. I would say 5 nights a week. And I'm having conversations in my stories with our audience, and they appreciate that. It's not some random, it's not a no one. There is a face and a person behind this brand. And I share my personal experiences. We don't get political on Bump Club and Beyond, but I think that some people would say that some of the issues we address might be political, but we don't get political. But we've never been shy to support any kind of movement. If you go on our Instagram right now, we are very much, supporting Black Lives Matter and supporting what is going on. And, we are all about our community and putting them first. And that, I think, is...
And I think that's totally valid, because to ignore the fact that people with brown and black skin have an increased risk of death during pregnancy and childbirth it's inauthentic. And to say that, we're not getting political. Well, I'm sorry, what has happened to the landscape of giving birth in the past few months is something that must be addressed. And so I don't think it's political to say we support the process of birth for all different kinds of people. You can't ignore the facts that are right in front of us, or else we're just tone deaf. We're completely tone deaf.
And I mean, at the end of the day, humanity and humankind, that's not politics. And so and I've always said, if someone doesn't agree with, a stance we're making, and, we do a lot for women's rights and women's empowerment. And, there's a lot of tough issues that we tackle, and we always have. And for the amount of people, for every one person that unfollows us, 5 people follow us. And like, that's the type of community I want to build. It's again, not about the numbers. It's about building a really solid community. And we've worked so hard at earning their trust and, having these conversations. And that is why I think people trust us, because, one, there's an actual person and people, because we it's not just me, there are other people. And 2, we speak our minds. We don't sugarcoat. Like, I don't script. I don't, every post isn't an ad. Like, it's very authentic. And when I'm having a tough day, I say that. When I'm upset about something, I say it. I have cried on our Instagram stories before, not on purpose. Like, you have to be honest and trustworthy, and then people will start coming to you. And like, the minute you start buying, and the minute you start doing things that are really short-sighted, you lose your trust with your customer.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I actually have an Instagram story planned for today about the people that I call the perfect unfollow. So in the past 2 days, I have posted 2 opinions on Black Lives Matter, and I lost 300 to 400 followers on Facebook. And it's like, okay, cool. You're just not my peeps. If we can't honestly talk about these things, then that's okay. There are other places, just like there are other maternity brands, that they'll gladly tell you that marriage is between one man and one woman, and, no sex outside of marriage, and this, that, and the other. There are those brands, and you can engage with those brands. It's just not us. And that authenticity piece is so key. I mean, I've got my marching orders over my shoulder over there. You got to show up, add value to people's lives, and not put a bunch of drama on them. And to everyone listening, I cannot agree with Lindsay more. Don't buy followers. Don't employ bots, employ people. We had a graduation ceremony for my business coaching clients last night, and I brought my whole team. And I said, when you send an email, this is the person that's actually answering it. This is the person you're talking to on Instagram, because people want personal connections, especially right now. So what are the values that you stand for at Bump Club and Beyond? I'm already picking up on a few of them, but what are those values that are overarching, and how do you instill them not only in your audience, but within your employees and your contractors? And really, how did you suss that out, that the company that acquired you respected the values that you had created?
Yeah, I mean, we're all about a you do you, like, mentality, and we as employees and as a community must respect that. Because I just, there are so many differences, and we want to embrace differences. We want to embrace community. And a community can't function if it's made up of one kind of person. It just can't. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is, outside of COVID, we host a lot of events, in-person events. And a lot of those events really stemmed from these expectant parent dinners we host in Chicago. They're live in-person events. Like, we get anywhere from 50 to 100 expectant parents that come. And, I am a transplant to Chicago. I'm not from here. I now live in the northern suburbs of Chicago. And I would say 5 years ago, I still maintain this. Like, I looked around the room at one of the expectant parent dinners, and I was like, wow, like, this is like a real diverse bunch. And, it's not an accident that happened. We are a welcoming, inclusive, everyone matters, and I think, a lot of people, like, maybe just before coming would maybe think like, oh, like, everyone there is going to look like Lindsay, like white, a suburban upbringing. And it's not. Like, we have like so many different like races and religions and ethnicities. And I have connected with so many different people. And that is what our community is about. It's like, it doesn't matter like the color of your skin or the religion you practice. Like, motherhood is motherhood. And, and everyone's welcome. Everyone is welcome to share their opinions. And, in all of our Facebook groups, like, there's a comment at the top, like a rules board, I guess. And basically the values are, you can share your opinions. Like, let's not get controversial. Let's not shoot people down. Let's respect each other. And, really and truly, the values that I live in my everyday life are the values that are perpetuated through this community.
Mm-hmm.
And, and it's be kind, like, do what's best for you. And like, don't worry about anyone else. And like, like, if you need to keep your opinions to yourself, then so be it. And that was really important to me when I was acquired, because I didn't want to roll up into a company where like it was just going to be about money. And I am the person that is managing that separation between our audience and the parent company. Truthfully, like, we've never made a big announcement to the Bump Club audience that we sold. So like, that, because it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter who owns us. Like, I'm here, my team's here, my whole team came over except for one person. And, we're still doing what we do, and we're still doing what we do best. So I have really been the person between my community and the company. And yes, I have to deal with some more, political red tape now than I ever have before, but the audience doesn't know about it.
Right. Yeah, and absolutely.
So and that's helped us to continue with our values.
And they don't need to know, because it would make them nervous to know. It might make them wonder like, oh no, is this about to change? And so I love the painting behind you. Home is where my mom is.
Oh,
that is so sweet. So you have 2 daughters, and you're a boss juggling a lot, trying to keep all the balls in the air. How do your children perceive Bump Club and Beyond, and how has it impacted their lives?
Yeah. So actually, my daughter made me that for Mother's Day, which was so sweet. My older one. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. And, I've really kind of tried to perpetuate the notion that like, this is us and this is our family and like, this is what I do. And like, my kids don't know my life before Bump Club. I was out of publishing by the time my oldest, she was 3 months when I left publishing. So this is really all they know. And I like to share this story. I would say probably like 4 or 5 years ago, when we were living in the city still, I walked upstairs and my daughter was like playing Bump Club. I was like, what are you playing? And she's like, well, I'm playing Bump Club. Like, here's the presentation and here's the audience. And she had it like set up and she had a toy stroller. We do a lot of giveaways, like a ton of giveaways at Bump Club. And she was like, and here's the prize. And it was like her like baby pram. And in that moment, I really knew and understood that like they're watching and they're listening to every move. And like, I need to be setting a good example for them. So yes, there are definitely times, not right now because I've been home for the longest that I've been home in the last 10 years, but there are times outside of COVID when I'm not here. But that's part of our life. And I've made that a part of our life. And I've surrounded ourselves with good support and good help. And my husband's amazing. And I really involved them in the process. And now that they're older, I am involving them more, to however they want, like to the degree that they want. Like, I'm very careful about what I post about them and what I share about them. Because I realize that, I still am the mom at the helm of Bump Club, but like my kids have a sense of privacy too. And I want to respect that, but I'm involving them more and more, in what we do. And I want to show them what we do. So like, for example, my oldest daughter just this week, I'm making her like a Bump Club correspondent for the summer. And she's doing product roundups for me. She's helping to research toys and research recipes. And we're going to pitch her and I together on TV to present them. And like, I'm just trying to show her like some of the things that she can do and empower her. And my younger one's a little bit too young to be doing some of that. She's a ham and she would love to be on camera, but she's still only 6. But so I think, how has it affected their lives? Like, I hope that it's affected their lives and that I'm giving them a good role model to look up to. And, I very much try to do it all. But I know we can't do it all. And so I do, ask for help. And I do, we have an amazing au pair who lives with us. She's like my girl's older sister. And, I think it's also helped them to understand that like, I can't do everything and they might need to ask other people, for help, and not just come to me. But I think like to what I said before, like this is part of their life. And I think they're really proud of me. I mean, they talk about Bump Club to their friends and, I want it to be something that they're proud of and not something that's hindering them. They've come on trips with me. We've gotten to make amazing trips to some of the places I've had to go for work. And I think they realize that, this is an awesome thing that is a part of our family. And that's the thing, is it's a part of our family. It's not just a part of me.
Absolutely. And, I love this story so much because when you first said, oh, I'm playing Bump Club, my mind went to caring for a baby doll. But your daughter is exploring her own entrepreneurial spirit, which just like gives me chills. I love that. So, Lindsay, before you go, are you ready to do a couple of lightning round questions?
Yeah, sure.
All right, here we go. What is your number one strength?
My tenacity.
I could believe that. What is the thing that you still struggle with the most?
Letting things go and relinquishing responsibility.
If you could give some advice to a younger version of yourself, what would it be?
To not be afraid to ask for help. I think, we're all wired. Women tend to be wired to want to do everything themselves. And in the beginning I did, and a lot of it was financial, but a lot of it was also, I just wanted control. And like, I wish that I would have, hired that controller early on to help me. And I think it's okay to ask for help, whether in business or in personal. And like, that is also a big thing too. There's a lot of moms who stay home and they think they can do it all too. And no one can do it all. And you need to ask for help.
Absolutely. You can have it all, just not all at the same time. I love
Correct.
that saying. What keeps you up at night?
Right now, the state of the world. I mean, and it does weigh very heavy on me because I have two kids and I just want this world to be a great place for them to grow up. And, I'm worried, and it keeps me up at night.
The world is very heavy right now, and I know I just keep sitting back and just like praying and thinking like just God, let goodness be behind this. Whatever, I'm going to trust the process. I'm going to do the things, but please, dear, it brings tears
And
to my eyes. Like, please, dear God, be behind this.
we're trying, like, I mean, that's when at Bump Club we put a big stake in the ground, like on March 12th, that we were going to support our audience through this no matter what. And like we have turned everything and gone online, like all of our events, all of our everything. But in my conversations with the audience, a big point that I try to make is we have to find the positive in this. And we talk about it a lot on Bump Club. Like, what do you think the positives are? Like, do you still think there are positives to this? And like what positive outcomes have come with you and your family? And so I agree with you. And what keeps me up at night is how I can make this world a better place for my kids.
Absolutely. That was one of the pieces of advice I was given when all of this first started was how can you be a positive impact on the most people as possible right now? Because that is part of the path that I have been given to walk in this life, and it's an honor to be able to do it. Who has been your greatest inspiration?
Oh, my greatest inspiration. There's so many people. I mean, I would say my grandfather, like he is such a hard worker, and I'm so lucky I still have a grandfather. He's 97, and I lost my grandmother during COVID. They were married for like 75 years, and um so it was very recent, but he has always been one to instill hard work in our family and in me and my cousins. He worked at Ford for many, many, many years. And I've never seen someone work so hard and want more for their family. And he puts everyone else before himself. And I think a lot, I tend to do that too. And I think a lot of that comes from him. And that kind of like, and he doesn't even realize he's a mentor. You know what I mean? It's not like he's actually mentoring me, but those values are really a lot of what I built Bump Club on.
I'm also blessed to still be a granddaughter. My grandmother is 90 years old, and there is something about people that were raised through the Great Depression and during the
Yes.
Great Depression that instilled such amazing values surrounding money management and how to live frugally and how to, for my family living in the South, how did we grow our own food? How did we give to communities? And so, last question is God to you is?
God to me is, I have to be honest, like I am not the most religious person.
Don't have to be.
And I know. And so I don't think about God very often, although I have thought about God a lot more recently because I wonder like what is God doing right now? What is his plan in this? Because I do firmly believe that things happen for a reason, firmly. And I do believe that there is like a greater power that makes those things happen. Um, and it's not that I don't believe in God, but I guess I don't really have that I'm not answering your question really, but I don't really have like a sense of God to me is. I mean, I think God to me is this bigger entity that hopefully is shaping the world and making things work for a positive outcome eventually. And that is really like I do think that I think about that all the time. Like there has to be a reason for this. Like very similar to like the many studies of the Holocaust. I mean, and I am Jewish, and like I often think like, why did God do that, and like what was behind that, and there has to be some kind of reason. And so similar to right now. I mean, I know that was a long-winded answer, and I think a lot of that is, in all honesty, because I'm not so religious, but I do
But
believe in God. But
I mean, I think just
yeah,
listening to your answer, It's God to you is like a goodness in the
Yeah.
universe. There's a goodness that comes from above, and whatever that is whatever you want to call it. So thank you so much for being so candid and so honest with me and so authentic, and for creating a brand that helps women and men go through what can be a really scary time in their lives. And so, Lindsay Pinchuk, thank you so much for being here on the Lindsay Elmore Show.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. It's such a pleasure meeting you. This was such a nice time. I really appreciate it.
Oh my goodness, and I totally forgot, anybody out there who is expecting or plans to be expecting or just gave birth, go check out.
Or parents. We do a lot for parents too.
Bump Club and Beyond is a totally free program for you. Parents to be, parents, soon to be parents can gain access to exclusive discounts, webinars, offers. Very soon you will be at live events again, as well as free product. I know, I'm with you, sister. Free product samples. All you have to do is join the Bump Club community, and it is totally free for you. So everyone go and check out www.bumpclubandbeyond.com.
Thank you.
Do you have big dreams but are unsure how to put them into action? Brand Strategies Lab is the place to turn your ideas into the nuts and bolts that you need to create, revitalize, or expand your brand. It is an online business training course that helps you decide who you are, what you sell, and who will buy it. It is hosted on a brand new social media platform called Channels. If you love Marco Polo, video chatting with your friends, or Snapchat, then you will absolutely love Channels. I created Brand Strategies Lab following more than 10 years of business coaching, mentorship, reading, and personal growth. Find out more and be the first to access this new training at www.lindsayelmore.com/BSL. That's www.lindsayelmore.com/BSL. Okay, parents out there, in this next segment, I put on my pharmacist cap and I have a very direct discussion with you about birth control pills, why they're used, who should use them, what they protect from and what they don't, and what you need to consider if you are using any type of oral contraceptives alongside essential oils, herbs, medications, and supplements. So if you have any tiny ears in the room, now's a good time to cover them up. With all this talk about babies, I thought I might take a moment to talk about the equal and opposite desire to not have children. Lots of women choose to use birth control pills for their pregnancy prevention. And because a lot of women also use essential oils, medication, supplements alongside them, there's the concern that will it make it ineffective? So in this segment, I would like to talk to you a little bit specifically about essential oils and birth control pills. So great news, ladies. There is no human data to suggest that essential oils interact with birth control pills or could make them ineffective. However, there is some in vitro data that reveals there is a very theoretical risk at high doses. So let's talk further. Birth control pills are more formerly known as oral contraceptives. So pills as they used to exist no longer exist. Pills are a way that you take your medication formulation, roll it out, and then cut slices, and that's what creates your pill. Oral contraceptives, on the other hand, are generally tablets, and that means that birth control pills is a little bit antiquated, but it still is what people recognize in colloquial language. So we're going to use that interchangeably with oral contraceptives. Oral contraceptives are divided into two different groups. There are the combined oral contraceptives and the progesterone-only pills. Combined oral contraceptives use both estrogen as well as progesterone, and these are the most commonly prescribed of the two options. Oral contraceptives that contain both estrogen and progesterone are the most commonly prescribed because they have a longer duration of action than do the progesterone-only pills. The progesterone-only pills, a missed pill is considered 24 hours after the last dose of either a combined oral contraceptive or a progesterone-only pill. However, the combined oral contraceptives tend to last a bit longer. So even if you're a few hours late, maybe even a day or two late, you're going to still have that contraceptive action. Progesterone-only pills, on the other hand, a missed pill and a loss of contraceptive action can take place as early as 27 hours after the last dose. So unless you are disciplined and can set a clock so that you do not miss a dose, progesterone-only pills are likely not the correct one for you. The duration of action of your combined oral contraceptives dramatically depends on the dose that you are taking. And so, there are different doses. Over time, we've realized that it takes way less estrogen and progesterone than we originally thought to induce a contraceptive action. And as such, doses have come down through the years because it keeps women safer and less at risk for adverse effects. While essential oil constituents do not directly interact with birth control, there is some theoretical data that they may affect metabolism. Specifically, a progesterone-ish compound known as drospirenone, which is found in the drugs Yasmin and Yaz, is metabolized by cytochrome 3A4. And the most common estrogen component found within birth control pills is ethinyl estradiol. And that is found in tons of different oral contraceptives. And this compound is metabolized and oxidized by both CYP3A4 and CYP2C9. So what do we see? In vitro, which remember are studies within a petri dish, not studies within a life form, in vitro studies show that certain essential oil chemical constituents can either can inhibit the function of CYP3A4 and CYP2C9. This is important. They inhibit. There's no evidence, on the contrary, that they can induce the metabolism of CYP3A4 or 2C9. This means that in theory, you cannot decrease your levels of oral contraceptives. That is what would lead you to the potential of an unplanned pregnancy. Constituents and whole oils such as blue chamomile, peppermint, menthol, bergamottin, bergeptol, bergeptin, sorolin, and more can inhibit CYP3A4, and blue chamomile, alpha-bisoprolol, camazoline, and farnesene have been shown to inhibit CYP2C9. Inhibition of these metabolizing enzymes, that is going to cause your drug levels to rise. That doesn't increase the risk of unplanned pregnancy, but it increases the risk of side effects. So if you're choosing to use essential oils alongside your oral contraceptive medicines, look out for side effects such as headache, migraine, menstrual irregularities, nausea, breast tenderness, decreased libido, weight gain, and fatigue. These not only are a sign of medication excess, but honestly are just common side effects upon initiation of combined oral contraceptives. So let's talk now about how there is a lack of data in human trials. When I did my research, I only found one study involving women, and this was when women were given a proprietary encapsulated lavender oil alongside their oral contraceptive pills. The great news is the researchers concluded that there was no evidence to suggest that the lavender essential oil impacted the oral contraceptives at all. We also know that in the in vitro studies, there were massive doses required to inhibit our drug metabolizing enzymes. That means that there's not a real meaningful risk to women who are choosing not to become pregnant by taking oral contraceptives. What about other birth control techniques? Okay, some women use condoms, and we should, as oral contraceptives do not do anything to protect against sexually transmitted infections. What we know is when women use latex condoms in intercourse, that both essential oils as well as fatty oils can weaken those condoms. That means that the pore size, which it's really important that the pore size stay intact, because if it gets bigger, it increases the risk that sperm moves through the condom, and that is not where we want to be if you are aiming not to get pregnant. If you are considering what to use instead of latex, consider lambskin or a polyurethane condom, as these can be used alongside our fatty oils. Things to consider: lambskin condoms are not vegetarian, and they are more porous than latex and are therefore not intended to protect against every sexually transmitted infection. So if you're looking to protect against both sexually transmitted infection as well as using your fatty oils, polyurethane condoms are going to be the way to go. Now, what about supplements that interact with essential oils, birth control pills, make you more likely to get pregnant? I would be remiss if I glossed over this topic without bringing up St. John's wort. St. John's wort is an herbal supplement well known to increase the metabolism of oral contraceptives, thereby lowering drug levels and increasing the risk of unplanned pregnancy. If you choose to use St. John's wort, which is a supplement that helps to alleviate the symptoms of mild depression, then it is critical that you use a backup method such as a condom, a spermicide, or the morning after pill to prevent unintended pregnancy. I am consistently amazed how many women use St. John's wort while on oral contraceptives without knowing of the interaction. What about medications? Well, antibiotics also reduce the effectiveness of birth control medications. Gut bacteria are well known to recirculate birth control medicines within the gut, and this prolongs their mechanism of action. When antibiotics are taken, gut bacteria die off, and the circulating half-life of some birth control pills is reduced, and therefore it increases the risk of unplanned pregnancy. Furthermore, when we think of other safety points about using birth control medications, some birth control medications increase the risk of, not the risk, but they just increase potassium in the blood. So if you are using potassium supplementation, eating a diet that is very high in potassium, or taking multiple vitamins, you need to use some caution. If you choose to use essential oils while on oral contraceptives, as always, talk to your doctor or pharmacist about the side effects of your medication, especially the signs that may indicate that levels are too high. Public service announcement: women with cardiovascular, cerebrovascular, or coronary artery disease, deep vein thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, adrenal disease, diabetes with vascular complications, or headaches that have neurological complications should not use oral contraceptive medicines. There's an increased risk of blood clots in women who use combined oral contraceptives, and women who use combined oral contraceptives are urged not to smoke, as it may lead to more serious side effects, including blood clots, high blood pressure, and increased risk of heart attack. And these risks are especially high in women over 35 years of age. Tell your kiddos that are out there maybe thinking about having sex for the first time, even if they're on a birth control pill, this does not prevent any sexually transmitted infection, and so everyone should be using condoms to protect against human immunodeficiency virus, that's HIV, chlamydia, gonorrhea, herpes, and human papillomavirus. But bottom line, great news. There is no data to suggest that essential oils impact the effectiveness of birth controls, but certain herbs Minerals, medications, and supplements can definitely interact with birth control medications. The Lindsay Elmore Show is written and produced by me, Lindsay Elmore. Show segments are produced by Sue Procco and Kelsey Lorman. Production design, sound design, and editing is by Jive Media. If you have a question about this or any other episode of the podcast, send us an email to hello@lindsayelmoreshow.com. And hey, since you're still here, take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And while you're at it, go over and follow us on Instagram @Lindsay Elmore Show. This helps us bring the pod to more people.